if it had come back to us, we might have been able to partake from the outside and give some information prior to just the presentation. Right? And the information, what I'm looking at, I like, and it's good. I need to absorb it more and understand it even better myself. But had I, in the past 6 months, had some of the information, it would have made my thought process a little bit easier to work with.
Sean?
As this process went along from November to now, there was information coming to us that built this presentation.
Mhm.
To give you information on a piecemeal basis would have been a snapshot that I don't think until the whole presentation was put together, you could quite grasp the whole process. And there was information we were gathering, when I think we were meeting at some points every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
There was information coming, but you needed all the information that we just recently received until you were able to put this presentation together. So I honestly don't think it would have been helpful to you to get it in piecemeal form. 'Cause I think a complete presentation allows us to cull all the information together. So I think this format was a better way to proceed. That's from my vantage point from where I sat.
I don't believe it was the intent of the board back when, that they were gonna get incremental project reports. I think it was the task of the committee was to go out, study the feasibility of getting to ALS, and, clearly, we had a pathway, and then we had to reconsider it because of the grant, and find a way of making it work. We could have walked away and said, no, it's not gonna work because we didn't get the grant. We didn't do that. So, this presentation is the presentation of the ALS Study Committee, represented by members of the Fire Department, Administration, and 2 members of the Board of Selectmen. Right? And it's a presentation with a recommendation for consideration of the board, not to be made tonight.
No, I
That's
understand.
why I
It's not to be
suggested
made
that we
tonight, but-
meet and talk about it. I was hoping if there are questions or answers that are needed, fire it back to this committee. We'll meet and get those answers, right? This is a presentation that I think all the committee is in support of. It's not, one person's idea. I made the presentation, but, we sat this morning going over the presentation at the fire department, right, to make sure that the information was as accurate as we could make it, and to make sure that if they had any concerns, that they would post them. Right. So this is it. This is the first step. Now, if you need more time, the June date I picked was to help move it along, but it's not critical. What's critical is that we have a go-ahead so that, I think the board needs to say, yes, we want to move forward with this so that we can go file for the medical applications. And I assume that if the board says we want to go forward with it, then our fire union and the board, our board itself will start to prepare our list of things that we think we want. They're going to prepare their list, and hopefully we'll get together soon. The deadline was that I feel if we can't come to some agreement, I hope we come to an agreement a lot sooner. If we can't come to an agreement by then we have to worry, because, if it goes past that date, then, we're forced to make a decision of whether or not we want to risk our budgets by adding personnel when we don't have a revenue stream necessarily to fund it. So, those are dates that I think this morning we were pretty much in agreement on.
It sounds like to me we're not going to have a vote on this tonight, but.
No, there was no intention to have a
Okay.
vote on it.
Do we have to vote on the BLS rate tonight?
Ask Greg.
Not this evening, no. No, I think the intent was to digest an opinion and get a rate before the board at its next meeting.
For the next meeting.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the change in the BLS rate is independent of any decision we make.
That's why I'd asked
Yeah,
if there has to
yeah.
be a separate motion made to do it. Again, just a rookie question, but.
No, good question, because we're actually losing, currently, our rate is tied into the
Yeah.
Medicare rate, it's Medicare plus 65%. Medicare has reduced their rate, so
Let's see why we're waiting.
even under our current rates, we're not generating as much revenue as we had.
I think the plan was to make it effective July 1st.
That's right, we have to have, advertise it, post it, there's a period of time before the rate becomes effective.
Before we do a motion on it?
No, once the board adopts it, there's a period of time that we have to put the rate out there, and then the rate becomes effective 30 days after the board's vote.
So should we make a motion this evening?
Again, I don't see
Yeah.
that there is a need to unless
Right.
you feel it's compelling reason to do it because of a couple of days.
Well, I think,
it's
the
2
assumption I've
weeks.
been making, okay, maybe I'm misunderstood, was that we would put that rate into effect on the 1st of July.
And we intend to prepare to get there. If we're a couple of days off, we're a couple of days off.
If we vote at town meeting, we voted at 6 o'clock at the town
Right.
meeting on the 7th, then we're,
Okay,
Right.
all right, fine.
I just wasn't sure what the plan was, so.
Okay. Any other discussion on ALS? Mr. Rowe?
I have two questions. One is, if this goes into effect totally, how many men per shift will there be actually working
At what point in time?
when it's fully implemented?
That's one of the issues that we will
You know,
negotiate.
When it's fully implemented, there'd be 5 men on a shift. I
5
think,
men per shift?
I think the contention is, what happens if, would we fill a 5-man shift? If you notice that a number of the departments that, you know, they may have a 13-man
Right,
shift.
they have a- yeah, I understand.
You know, if they have one out, they go with a 12. That's one I am absolutely sure, because it's been mentioned, will be a collective bargaining issue.
The other question is, what is the total additional cost? I'm looking at it strictly as money now. This is not gonna pay for itself.
No, it is.
It is.
It is, totally. So in other words, it's gonna be no additional
What-
revenue from the taxpayer to go to the fire department budget.
Right.
This will be self-sustaining.
Right.
That's why I like it so.
And that's why we took such a conservative number and plugged it
That's
into our
why it's
revenue
spread
plan.
out over 3 years.
Now, I look at it, and because I've done negotiations in the past, the first year is fine. Then the next year, all the new people have 2 weeks vacation. Then the 5th year, they have X
Yeah,
vacation.
right, of
So
course.
on and so forth. So in the past, when we projected out the cost per man, it's never been what we projected. It's always cost us more. So that's my only concern is that, you know, I just want to make sure, because one of the problems I have, we can't afford to give our employees cost of living increases now. I certainly don't want to put more personnel on. You know, that's,
Yeah, there's, yeah, that's a consideration, obviously. Okay. Next item on our agenda. It's town meeting recommendations.
There were several items that were discussed at the last meeting. You have motions that are in your packet, beginning with Article number 22, which is to recommend adoption of General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 18. I want to add that the Finance Committee has since taken a vote and indicate that they support this article. As you'll recall, the intent of this article is to switch over both current and future retirees from the HMO plan to the Medicare equivalent plan that the town does offer. We've calculated out that there is a savings. Savings based upon our current enrollment is estimated in the range of $60,000. Going forward, we calculate that there'll be a per family savings, or excuse me, a per retiree savings of about $2,000. There is the penalty that the town would be forced to pay, and that's included in the number that I gave you in terms of the total savings to the town.
But that $60,000 number, am I correct? That doesn't factor in, that's just moving
Just move it.
existing retirees over into Medicare. It doesn't then do the analysis based upon the new pool that would be in the current health insurance plan,
That's
correct?
correct.
But that analysis was done by a member of the finance committee, correct?
It was done,
And there was a number
yes.
that he estimated that the savings would be based upon that new mix?
Savings was estimated, a second to find it. My recollection was on the low end was about $809,000. And on the high end, my recollection was that the number went upwards of $170,000.
One hundred and eight thousand to 169,000?
That sounds about right.
And I believe we also determined, or we got an opinion, did we not, that right now, the town pays 50% for the retirees' health insurance?
Which is this minimum under the statute that the town is obligated to pay.
But we're not locked into that. It's a possibility we could consider a different rate
Absolutely,
for the retirees.
yes.
How many employees have we talked about? Number? I've heard between 16 and 25. Have we narrowed that down?
16 have been determined as definitely being eligible. There are 9 maybes.
What is in the path of determining the maybes?
The inability of the Social Security Administration to provide us with that information. It's not because of a lack of trying, it's because of a lack of cooperation.
And we also determined that, based upon our meeting 2 weeks ago, Ms. Bernier raised the issue of the town getting reimbursements for overpayments by retirees. We got clarification on that, did we not? That it wasn't an overpayment. What it is because our Medix plan is a very generous plan, so the federal government actually compensates us to the tune of about $100,000 annual.
Correct,
It has nothing to do with any overpayment by a retiree.
correct.
It's a thank you.
And
It's a thank
Well,
you from the
my
federal
concern-
government for
my-
not putting us,
And
for not putting money in.
I'm happy
for
on
that plan.
all fronts on that, because we're getting a benefit, but also the retirees aren't making an overpayment that we're keeping. So that was the concern from 2 weeks ago.
Don, you had your hand up.
Just the numbers that you asked were how many people, what we've used in the low end of that number is 16 people. The other 9 people, I don't know what we can do to get that information, but if we were to be able to bring them on, we would have a significant increase in the savings. So I think we just need to determine that. And I wonder if one of the criteria for whether or not one is Medicare eligible is whether or not the individual paid Medicare tax during their employment time. Would not our personnel records show whether or not all of those individuals did or didn't pay Medicare tax rate?
Over the course, if it were strictly for the town of North Reading, correct?
Yeah.
But over the course of their career, we don't have that information.
Well, we would know if they did pay it while they were an employee of the town of North Reading.
Right. The question comes up as to whether these people have paid the Medicare tax at any point in their career or contributed to Social Security throughout the course of their career.
Okay, but I'm asking if we knew that they did pay the Medicare tax during their time when they were not Reading employees,
We'll
would
have,
that not make
Right.
them?
I think we checked that. I think Allison checked that, as far as the current
That's-
employees,
isn't that
based
where
upon
we-
their employment
That
with
must
the
be
town of
where the
North
bigger
Reading.
number is,
But what we
right?
don't have is whether or not people were, had a second job or worked prior, another career prior to here, and paid in. We don't have access to that information.
The 9 people did not pay it as employees of the
That's
town.
the town of North
Is that-
Reading.
Is that the answer?
That's-
they're all
that's my
long-term
understanding.
employees as I look at the names.
Okay.
And if those 9 are at it, does it increase not only the 60,000, but that range of number from 108 to 169?